All right. Happy Saturday, everybody. Oh man, this video has been a long time coming, and man, it's a big one. We're gonna talk about Halo 1 today. I'm gonna wait a few minutes to see if anyone shows up, and then we're gonna get right into it. But man, the nostalgia for this one is huge for me, man. My God, man. You talk about like, there's a few games that came out during when I started like taking games seriously within like like the late 90s, early 2000s. And Halo came out at just the right time for me, man. Oh my God, man. I'm just looking at these images. So I think I should probably start at the beginning. And that was back in the day, man. I think I was reading either it was EGM or it was a GamePro magazine. And I specifically remember seeing an image in their preview section for Halo. And it was an image of Master Chief. And the first thing I thought of was like, this guy looks like Samus. I'm like, you tell me that Microsoft is gonna come out with a new console and they're just gonna rip off Metroid? Now this is way back in the day before, like I really didn't understand too much about what was going on behind the scenes, I was just a kid reading the magazine, so I was like, the Microsoft, they're just gonna rip off Metroid. But then I started reading the article and hearing the things that they were talking about. And this was way back in the day where like the information drip, anyone like that can remember like way back in the day, like the information drip for games was really slow. Like it wasn't like today where like every second you go on to YouTube you're seeing news immediately. Like information was out there, but it took a while to get to people. So my first thoughts was, man, this thing doesn't look very good. It looks cool, like his image, his armor looks cool, but I was like, I don't know. Flash forward about a year when this game was ready to be launched. And I specifically remember I was walking around the mall with my family and we walked past an electronics boutique. And my parents knew I was a gamer, so we would always go inside and look around and stuff. All I remember was that when I walked in there on those demos they had, like those, they would set up those big TVs and the controllers. They had one there for Xbox. And there were these two kids, they were playing Halo. Split screen. I remember this like it was yesterday. When I saw that game in motion and the way the action looked in that thing, the smoothness of it, the graphics, I literally was going crazy. I didn't act out on it. I didn't act like I was going crazy, but I saw it as a kid and I'm like, whoa. Because someone like me who I grew up playing like FPS games. Like I grew up playing like Doom, original Doom, back on like old PCs, man. Then I moved on to Quake. Then I moved on to Unreal. And then back to Quake 3 again. Let me tell you, when I saw the way that the action looked on that thing, and those guys were playing co-op, it was like nothing I ever seen before. I'm like, this looks insane. So the Xbox launched. And I remember everyone was talking about Halo. And I was like, wait a minute. this is a new console coming from a company that never really made a console before. And all everyone is talking about is Halo. And back in the day, man, that was a big deal, man. If people are talking about a game back at the lunch table, and you hear people talking about games, that was a big deal. So my friend actually ended up getting an Xbox. And I think the first time I played it, I'm trying to remember specifically when the first time I played it. Because it wasn't at my house, because I remember like I couldn't afford an Xbox at the time. So I think what happened was, okay, yeah. So I think what happened was my friend was a strictly PlayStation guy. And what ended up happening is we actually played Halo. I think we played it at someone else's house. And then we relayed it back to my friend. And we said, hey man, this game is absolutely crazy. Because the kid we played with, I think, you know, we weren't too close friends with him, so we couldn't play for very long. But when we convinced our friend to transfer over from PlayStation to Xbox, once he did that, he actually, you know, because back in the day, it was hard. Like for a guy who was on PlayStation to transfer over to a new system from an unknown, unproven, like Microsoft wasn't even like in the game yet. So to have a game that comes out that literally, I mean, it's crazy to think about it, how Halo is the reason Xbox is around today. Anyway, long story short, he gets an Xbox, he converts over to Xbox, we play Halo, and man, I think a year later I was able to get one for Christmas, an Xbox for Christmas, and it was the best Christmas of my life, guys. Let me tell you, the best Christmas of my life. I remember getting up that Christmas morning, hooking up that Xbox, and playing Halo for the first time. There was something magical about the way that Bungie figured out how to make first-person shooters play smoothly on console. Let me just take a drink real quick. Hold on. This is big time talk. Now, like I was saying earlier, I was always like a PC guy. So to me, mouse and keyboard was always the preferred way of playing FPS games. I'm like, there's no way that like, because you gotta remember like, FPS games were always sort of weird to play on controller back in the day. And I think it was because the way that controls were in the late 90s, early 2000s, it took a little bit of like, you had to have like a learning curve to it. Like it didn't really like play well right away. You would have to change buttons and remap this and remap that, and it just never really played right. Where a mouse and keyboard was just so smooth and easy to play. So when I picked up that Xbox controller, I'm like, this thing makes so much sense. Because essentially what they did was they were smart enough to realize that we need to map movement and looking on two separate analog sticks. And that was a game changer. It was like, my brain just clicked, yes, this makes sense. And the fact that pretty much every first-person shooter game that exists now has pretty much borrowed the layout from Halo is crazy to me. But let me tell you guys, the campaign of Halo 1 is some of the most memorable. It's basically like everything that I ever wanted in a video game, somehow Bungie managed to create because back in that time, like I was really into like aliens and that whole like space marine thing, and like the game was essentially like aliens at times. I mean, the scale of the fighting in this thing, the way that you fought alongside actual marines, the way the battles played out in Halo, my god, man, it was on a scale that has never been seen before. Like, I still remember, like, me and my friend Half Hope always talk about this. The mission Silent Cartographer, funny enough, the music is actually playing for it right now, is one of the greatest missions in the history of video games. You talk about, like, expert pacing. Like, the way this thing starts off, and you're on that ship, and you're looking around, and you're seeing the guys all there. Cortana's talking about, you know, the Silent Cartographer, she's giving her little speech, and then the ship lands. This thing was like D-Day. This thing was like Saving Private Ryan with aliens. The way the Master Chief comes out of that thing, and you're on that beach, and these guys want explosions, boom, boom, boom. The music starts kicking in, and you see the Covenant out front, and they're advancing towards you. God, man, it's giving me goosebumps just talking about it right now. That is what you call gaming. Where you forget everything, and you're in that world, you're in that moment. Unbelievable. So to me, I really feel like the strength of Halo over the years has sort of been the gameplay, the story, and the way that Bungie sort of really integrated the combat experience for console, because that was a huge deal back in the day. Now we're gonna try to break this down as to why this game is so good. And I think we should probably just talk about the storyline, because I've always been an advocate of someone that believes that if you have a strong storyline, it sort of bleeds into every other aspect of the game. And it's something that I've come to appreciate more and more over the years, because I remember when I first played Halo, I'm like, oh, this is just a cool sci-fi game. But I remember the more I played it, the more interested I started to get into the lore of it, because like, it's actually a pretty crazy concept, whereby these aliens are like fighting a holy war against humanity. And there's this other alien race that built this system of rings to exterminate all life in the universe in case another alien race manages to get unleashed. Even more so, you're the last of your kind of these crazy super soldiers, which there used to be hundreds of them, by the way. And essentially they got all wiped out in a surprise Pearl Harbor-like attack on Reach. And you were getting the hell out of Reach, and then all of a sudden you discover this crazy-ass Halo ring. And it's like, man, like, that is a really cool story, man. And what I love about Halo 1 is that it has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And it has a really nice thing it does where it kind of goes back to the beginning again, where you go back to the Pillar of Autumn at the end, and it wraps up very nicely, which I think a lot of game stories kind of have trouble with. So you have that crazy aspect. We're not even getting into like the extended lore, whereby we talk about the training that Master Chief went through on Reach, and the other Spartans that he worked with, and how they, how they picked him and all that. It goes pretty crazy. It was really a smart idea, I think, on Bungie's part to make Master Chief the way that he was. a man of very few words, a man of action. It really does put the player in his shoes in a good way. Because I like the way they did it, because like, you know, I play games like Half-Life where the main character never even speaks really. You're supposed to literally be inside of him and responding to things in your world. But they were smart enough to make Master Chief just deep enough to sort of be a character on his own. But you could put yourself in his shoes and it was fine. You know, it felt natural. Especially him being a soldier. It felt natural that he would be the player. And I think one of those things, it really does immerse the player a lot when you have a good protagonist like that with an interesting backstory. Got someone in the chat here about downloading Halo. You gotta find it, man. You could find it online, but I think you should definitely buy Halo, man. Probably your best bet is to get it on Steam. But I think the main draw of this game, for me as a gamer, that really sort of exploded and made it sort of like one of those, this is like way above everything else, was the combat. And the game was aptly titled Combat Evolved, and they titled that Combat Evolved for a reason. Let me tell you guys, like, there is something essentially fun about Halo within its gameplay that I don't think any other FPS game really sort of cracked as good as it did, because the sandbox of combat that they created in this game is absolutely fantastic. The thing about Halo is this is a key ingredient and the golden nugget of why this game is so good. No two battles in Halo ever play out the same way. And the AI in Halo is some of the best AI that has ever been put into an FPS game. So you have a combination of amazing AI, enemies that react to things the way they should, especially the elites, man. Let's talk about the elites were ridiculous, especially on Legendary. You put this game on Legendary, the elites do some crazy shit. So a combination of amazing weaponry that is fun to shoot, feels great. You have amazing AI, amazing enemy design, amazing enemy variety, and the combination of all those things. And you have some of the most fun, interesting combat, because I remember the combat in this game was so fun that I would replay levels over and over and over and over. I don't think there's ever been a first-person shooter game where I've played through the campaign mode this many times. It was really interesting, man. Like, they also did something really clever with the grenades, whereby in most other games back in the day, you had to select the grenade, you pull out the grenade, and then you throw the grenade. Halo said, nah, you want to throw a grenade? You just throw the grenade. And that created so much interesting scenarios in multiplayer, guys. Like, guys were just tossing grenades. Bing, bing. And like, man, like, I remember that whole situation where like guys were just like doing like the combat was, it made you creative in the way that you fought people, in a way that like I don't think any other game really did at the time. Man. So Bungie, I mean, you could tell that these guys, they understood that games had to be fun. Which is something that I feel like a lot of like game studios nowadays, like, they're going for so many different things, but then by the end of the day, it's like, is the game fun? It's such an obvious thing. And these guys, like, if you watch like the behind the scenes of how Halo was made, like they always talk about like 30 seconds of fun. And it's so true, man. Every 30 seconds, you're having fun playing this game. Oh man. It's getting me so nostalgic just thinking about all the memories I've had of this game, man. And we haven't even like started talking about the multiplayer yet. We were just talking about the campaign mode and all the gameplay features. But man, I think like I remember like the scale of Halo back in the day. The scale of this game was so big compared to every other thing, and it was partially attributed to the Xbox and it being new technology. But I remember like huge scale battles that would take place, especially in the later half of the game, where you would be fighting in these snowy levels and they would drop off a tank. I remember they dropped off a tank in one of the levels. You would just drive through there and you would see like massive structures, like giant alien structures. Like it was just such an amazing thing to see back in the day. That's something I feel has been sorely missing in games today, man. It really did feel like you were playing a next generation game. It was amazing, man. I don't really know what's going on with games these days, but I can tell you this, man. By the time you got to the end of the Halo 1 campaign, you felt like you went through a giant war. And it was absolutely insane. The scale of that game, the combat, the storyline, the characters you meet. Captain Keyes, the mission to go save Captain Keyes, Cortana. And I like the fact that like they established Cortana as this AI, and she's not just like a robotic AI. She has her own personality. Like she's cracking jokes. I remember in the beginning of the game, like when a grenade goes off near you, she's like, "Whoa, there's two of us in here now, remember?" And by the time you get to the end of this game, like you really do feel like she's your partner. And you know, Johnson, who was just like the guy from Aliens. It was, oh man, that guy was a tough son of a bitch, man. And I'm glad they found a way to bring him back for Halo 2, because that character was something special. Guys, I think we should just talk about the music for a minute. The music of Halo is some of the most iconic music ever made in sci-fi. Not just video games. In sci-fi, period. I don't know how Martin O'Donnell was able to do it, but there's something ethereal about the way the music was in Halo 1. I remember specifically the first time I booted the game up, and you hear "oh" in the start screen when you see the Halo ring moving around. There's something about that it was like, whoa, this is next level. It just brought everything up to level 10. Like Halo by itself was already at like 9, but the music of Halo brought everything up to like a level 10. You talk about some of the most iconic music in gaming history. There's so many good tracks in this game. My God, man. And it's so distinctive and unique sounding. Like, there's no other game in sci-fi that sounds like this. With the monk chants and just the way, the composition of this thing, man. every single track in Halo was so distinctive and different from each other. It had its own mood. Like I remember the mission when you're fighting at night and you're trying to get into the ship and save Captain Keyes. There's something about that track that, man, when that shit kicks in, man. Like it's just stupid, man. It's stupid, man. I'm getting nostalgic, man. I think it's actually playing right now in the background if you listen carefully. That's good timing, by the way. Hopefully this video doesn't get taken down audio-wise. I tried to lower the volume a bit so that way, you know, my voice comes through over it a bit more. And I want to do a video on Halo 2 and 3, but I think, you know, for now we're just gonna talk about Halo 1 because the music in Halo 2 and 3 actually got better, which is like a mind-blowing. I don't know how he did it. It's just amazing talent. Just they picked the right guy, and it's some of the most iconic. Like there's very few game music that I listen to outside of like playing the game. And there are times when I'll just put on the Halo 1 soundtrack or the Halo 2 soundtrack and it is so good, man, just to listen to it on its own. Oh man. Yeah, it's playing up right now. Ah. Halo was something else, man. Now, I think we should probably talk about multiplayer because I think that is where a lot of people have most of their nostalgia for Halo 4, is the multiplayer. Outside of the outstanding single player campaign. Guys, let me tell you how good Halo multiplayer was. Halo multiplayer was so good that people found a way to hack their Xbox to play online. People figured out through a program that somebody made called XP Connect, where they took an offline game and they managed to get it online. And I remember my friend specifically was the one who set this thing up. And guys, the multiplayer in Halo 1 was explosive. It was like when that game came out, nobody was playing anything else. Like it made every other game at the time like obsolete. Everybody was playing Halo. Like I specifically remember staying up till like 3 o'clock in the morning with my friends, man. We would order pizza. We would play split screen on that thing, man. Like 4-player split screen. You had a screen like this big. Because this was back in the day when people didn't have big TVs, man. Like the biggest TV like some guy would have would be like 32 inches. So you would be playing like in a screen in the corner like this big. Capture the flag, man. Slayer. And I remember like I would have to like get up, like people would like get pieces of cardboard to kind of make it so it's hard for people to see what the other guys were doing, man. And I would get up close to the screen like this, and I'm looking at what I'm doing, and trying not to. Hey, don't look at my screen, man. Don't look at. But man, like the combination of vehicles, the maps, the weapons. Like, I still remember Blood Gulch so clearly, man. The way that map was laid out, man. The thing about Halo was that there weren't very many maps in Halo 1, but they were all good. They were all good. Oh, man. Just like the feeling of fighting your friends in that game. And the power-ups and the weapons. And the situations that happened. It was such a fun experience, man. And I remember that the weaponry in that game was so different than any other first-person shooter, because I remember the pistol in that game actually being the best weapon in the entire game. And let me tell you something, guys got good with that thing. That pistol in Halo 1, as broken as it was, ended up being one of the most fun weapons, because you could literally snipe guys across the map with that thing, man. Remember, guys got so good with that thing, man. It took only like 3 shots to kill a guy back with that thing. Boom, 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 boom. I remember just watching guys running around with that thing. Bum, 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 like taking guys out. Like the trick was to throw a grenade at the guy's feet, take out his shield, and then bum, bum, one shot kill immediately. So the aspect of having a shield in that game was really what made that game stand out, because it was actually like really fun to like take guys out, you know, because there was like a feedback, like the combat in Halo 1, it was like a feedback to the player that was unparalleled, man. The way that the weapons reacted to that shield, there was something about that was so satisfying. And that sound, beep, 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 boom, and the sound of like the sound design of that thing was unbelievable, man. Oh man, I'm on a nostalgia trip right now. I'm thinking of so many things, and everything is like flooding back to me now, like all the memories of this thing. Man, Halo was big time, guys. Halo was big time. It was the king. It was the king. This was before it even got online. Like, I'm saving that for a separate video. I'm saving that Halo 2 talk for a second video. I'm gonna try to get some of those guys. I'm still in contact with some of those guys from back in the day who played that with me. I'm gonna try my damn hardest to get those guys back on, because some of the stories, man. I'm laying the foundation right now, talking about Halo 1, because going into Halo 2, that was next level. And I need like 2 hours to talk about that game. But man, dude, like the thing about Halo is that it created, like, for me, I was in high school when that thing came out. So it was like prime time. I was like prime candidate for that game, because I wasn't going, like, after school, that's all I did. Man, it was the perfect game for me as a child. Get hooked on FPS games, man. Dude. Let me tell you something, man. I was drawing pictures of Master Chief in my binder at school. I would bring the manual to Halo into school, and my teacher would I remember my teacher recognized the manual because I was reading in the class. He's like, "Hey, is it Halo?" I was like, yeah. He's like, "Oh yeah, that's a good game. That's a good game." The teachers at school were playing Halo, man. Oh, that was crazy to me. I wish I still had that, man. I wish I still had my original copy, man. Kept that thing in good condition, man. I would just like, this was back in the day when like video game studios gave a shit about manuals, and they would put like information in the manuals, like especially the Halo 1 manual is really good because it gives you like a synopsis of the story so far. And man, it would have pages showing you the weaponry and detailed descriptions talking about all the weapons down to like the casing and the size of the It was a legit manual, man. Even the Covenant, like it had video of the, it had like, not video, it had pictures of the Covenant and detailed description of their backstories and all that stuff. Listen, man. The lore, man, like Bungie knew they had something special. They knew they had something special, man. It was a special time to be alive, man. I'm trying to remember what else I can talk about with this. Yeah, so I guess I should talk about the aftermath, because Halo essentially made Xbox a household name. Halo is the definition of a system seller. Like, I don't remember any other game like really before this that allowed a unheard of like company, because like Microsoft was around, but when they decided to make a console, everyone was like laughing at these guys. I mean, listen, this was around when PlayStation was at its peak. So to come into the game then, man, because the lineup of Halo, the lineup of the original Xbox wasn't the greatest, man. It wasn't the greatest. So to have a game that's a cultural phenomenon like that become a system seller, man, that is like Microsoft struck gold with that game. And Xbox owes its existence Halo 1. One of the greatest games in history. One of my all-time favorite games and greatest games, which I can't say that for a lot of video games, where it's both my favorite and on my list of greatest games ever. Master Chief will always be like an iconic image in my mind of like, this is a character that I'm gonna remember forever. And so it began. And so it began. Xbox, Halo, the rest was history. And guys, when we found out that there's going to be a Halo 2, because the ending of Halo 1, it was actually, I think, one of the better endings in gaming, because like there's not many games that I can remember that have like such a triumphant ending to it as Halo 1 did. And it felt like you really did have an ending, but it left a little hint for something more. And let me tell you something, guys. The hype for Halo 2 was unlike anything that I have ever experienced in my life. And I think at that, I'm going to call the video, because I need to talk about Halo 2 on its own. And man, it's a game. So guys, thank you so much for tuning into this video. I don't want to go too long, but if you haven't played Halo, make sure you play Halo, because that's one of the greatest sci-fi FPS action games ever made. So I'm going to go ahead and get out of here, guys. Thanks for watching. Remember to like and subscribe, because I want to bring you guys more content. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Later.